So remember how I said that a function kind of represents real life problems, right? So what that means is that there's kind of a limit to your data, right? If you're like doing that equation I did earlier with like how much money is in your bank account versus how much you spend, something like that, right? There's going to be a limit to that because I can't spend an infinite amount of money, right? I can only spend 100. Sometimes you might have to overdraft, things like that. But there's still like a range to that. There's a domain and a range to that of how much you can actually spend, where it's in the realm of like possibility, and we're not dealing with infinity where something goes on forever, right? Because we can't actually experience infinity as humans with our perception and things like that. Okay, so the domain represents the set of x values. Set of x values in a function. The range represents the set of y values in a function. Okay, so let's say you have this, you're given this table of values. Okay, and then it goes from -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then maybe the values are -6, -3, 0, 3, 6, 9. So the domain, it's the set of x values. So that means my x goes from, you always put the lowest number, so it goes from -1 to 4. Some people write it as like -1. You can write it either way. You can write it as like an inequality, right? X is going to be between -1 and 4, or you can write it this way, where you put the lowest number on the left and the highest number on the right, and X is going to be anywhere in between those, right? And you use these kinds of brackets because you're representing that it can be -1, right? And it can be -4. Okay, and so that's the domain. That's the set of the x values. The range is going to be the set, the y values. So again, we would just go from the lowest number, -6, to the highest number, 9. That's domain and range. And again, you could write it like this, except now it would be f of x in between, right? The value of the function only goes from -6 to 9. Okay, let's do another one. This time I'll just use y. Okay, so our domain here, lowest number is 0, highest number is 3. The range here, so be careful, this is decreasing. So that means our lowest number is 6, right? Our highest number is 12. So you just have to pay attention to whether the values are increasing or decreasing, but you always just put the lowest number here, the highest number there. Okay, so let's do like a real life example, right? Let's say you're a plumber. Okay, maybe you're like an independent plumber. You charge $25 per hour for the work that you do, plus a $30 travel fee. Okay, so it doesn't matter. Maybe you're a plumber. Maybe you go to someone's house and it takes 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. You're going to always just charge that $30, right? It took your time. You went there. You charged $30. maybe you just unclogged someone's sink. It was super easy. Okay, or maybe it took you, the whole day. Okay, so that means, like, we're going to call this the function. We'll make it a P for plumber, right? This is going to be the total cost for the plumber, right? And the total cost is going to equal to 25 times however many hours are worked, right? Okay, 25 times, so X is the number of hours worked. And then plus that, you always charge that flat fee of $30. So no matter what, it's going to cost $30. And then you are going to add how much, how many hours you work times 25. Okay, so the function of how much it's going to cost you to pay the plumber. And we're going to do this in a day. Okay. Unless you're like completely renovating a house, like typically the plumber should only be there for no more than a day. So total cost, what's the total cost of hiring a plumber for the day? So again, because now we're doing real life things, right? So domain, that's the range of X values, right? So depending on your issue, we know that the plumber could literally come and it takes like a few minutes, like 5 minutes to solve, right? So that's not even like an hour. He's probably not going to charge you for a whole hour if it only took 5 minutes, right? So the domain can go anywhere from 0 hours of work. And then if we're going to follow labor laws, plumbers usually have very strong unions, and they're very strict about not having their workers work longer than 8 hours. So that means for the day, the plumber cannot be there any longer than 8 hours, right? X's number of hours worked, he can work anywhere, he or she, they can work anywhere from 0 hours in a day to 8 hours in a day, but they cannot work any more than that. And of course, they can't work any less than 0, right? That's not possible. That means you just didn't even hire a plumber, right? So that's the domain, right? Work 0 to 8 hours in a day. Okay, so then the range, now we have to figure out the range. So sometimes you actually can't figure out the range until you plug in the X values. Okay, so let's figure out what is the value of P of X when X equals 0, the bottom of our range. Right, so what's the minimum you're going to pay? So if you call a plumber, even if they work for 5 minutes, you are still going to at least be paying them $30 for their time to drive there, look at it, and then whatever it was, right? So that's the minimum value that you're going to pay. Maybe you have a really huge issue, a pipe broke, whatever, for the day, and they have to work the whole 8 hours there. So we're going to plug that in. So 25 times 8 is 200 plus 30. So that means in a day, the most that you would be paying this plumber is $230, right? Because they can't work any more than 8. They've got their strict union labor contract. They're not going to work any more than 8. Once 8 hours passes, they're like, I'm going at home. Okay, I've done my duty, I've done my thing. So $230 is the max amount that you're going to pay the plumber in a day. Because remember, this function is just the total cost for a day. So that means your range goes from, you're going to pay this plumber anywhere from $30 to $230. Okay, and that's the range. Right, so again, because we're using a real life example, right, this represents the real life amount of hours they can work if you try and hire a plumber. And this represents the real life amount of money that you are going to pay. Right, yeah, so that is domain and range. a real life example, and then also just like some basic algebra function examples.